Our guest for this episode is Edurne Gil de San Vicente, Program Manager and Sustainability Enabler at WaterAlliance. Join us for a discussion on how does water scarcity affect businesses, the impact of this water crisis, and most importantly, how is UAE rethinking the use of resources.
Even though our planet is 70% water, only a small percentage of that is fresh water. Everything we do requires water for drinking, for washing, growing food, and for industries like construction and manufacturing. In the same time, water seems the most renewable of all the Earth's resources. So why are we stressing about it? Well, actually, recent studies show that climate change will severely exacerbate the water crisis. So yes, you guessed, the subject for today's episode is water. And my guest for today is Edurne Gil de San Vicente. Edurne, please help me and welcome to Rethink Podcast.
Thank you very much, Nicoleta, for having me today and having WaterAlliance with you.
Yeah, well, climate change is already causing extreme events impacting communities. But what is the impact of this water crisis? We don't feel to feel them, to see them in every day.
Yeah, exactly. We think that it's not in our backyard, but effectively it is. And you pointed to something very important because the climate crisis is actually a water crisis. So I like to quote the United Nations water because it says that water is the primary medium through which we will feel the effect of climate change. And this is already happening. But actually, before diving into your question and elaborating a little bit more on the impact of the water crisis, I think that it is important to understand that first, water is a shared resource and that is a shared responsibility then. And secondly, that fresh water is actually not distributed equally actually around the globe. So some regions are more vulnerable than others to variations in the water cycle. And unfortunately, the water cycle, like the carbon cycle, has been heavily disrupted. Why? Well, population growth, urbanization, our linear consumption patterns. So all of this has immersed us in a global water crisis. And as you rightly mentioned, climate change is exacerbating it. So how do we experience the water crisis? In three ways, actually, either through water scarcity, where demand actually exceeds availability. And we already know, you mentioned already some statistics, but the UN explains that 2/3 of the world's people actually face water shortages for at least 1 month each year. So let's remember Cape Town in 2008, how the taps literally ran out of water and they were rationalizing water. It was a very, very dire situation. And also, unfortunately, 1/3 of the world's biggest groundwater systems are already in distress. So everyone right now can experience water scarcity in one way or another. The other aspect of the water crisis is obviously water access. And unfortunately, still according to WHO, 1 in 3 people globally, they do not have access to safe drinking water at home. That is still pending for us, although we have declared water like a human right in 2010. It was recent, but this is a human right that this should not happen. And obviously, the third aspect of the climate crisis is water pollution. And unfortunately, this is right out there in the news with plastic pollution is everywhere. Microplastics are being found deep in the ocean, in all water bodies, in drinking water, even in the glacier caps. Everywhere we have this pollution affecting us, not only from plastic products, but also from chemical products. So yeah, the diffuse water pollution is a big problem as well. So pollution affects actually everyone, not only us as human, but also the natural environment. 1 in 3 of all freshwater species actually are threatened with extinction. And this environmental degradation impacts also livelihoods. So water is important for every single living being, not only us, obviously, but unfortunately, this loss of biodiversity and the disruptions of the ecosystems will have a big toll on the availability of natural resources, starting with water. Nature provides us with so many services that we don't really value them. So unfortunately, we are disconnected from nature nowadays, and we forget that we depend on healthy ecosystems for a healthy, sustainable planet. So yeah, you mentioned that the water sector is vulnerable, and that it's going to have a direct impact in the food and energy sectors. We need to understand that the water and the food and the energy systems are totally interconnected. And we know that right now, like all the international institutions agreed to say that agriculture accounts for 70% of the water withdrawals. So that's huge. Industry 90%, household 11%. So yeah, water is really required for our food and for our energy sectors too. And if these 3 systems are not in balance, then we are facing enormous risks for our economies and for our daily lives in one word. So yeah, for example, I can give an example. What is required in the energy sector to produce electricity through hydroelectric systems, or to cool towers to produce electricity as well, obviously has a huge impact on agriculture to have availability of water. And also food has, the food system is competing with the energy system in the way that we are producing crops for feeding cattle or feeding us, but we are also producing crops to generate biofuels, and it's a direct competition. So these 3 systems are interacting constantly. We need energy to transfer our food, and we need energy as well to, for instance, get our supply of water at home. So that's very important to understand that we cannot look at one problem in isolation, and that the water system is directly linked to other systems that will affect us enormously.
Of course, you already mentioned the scale of the water scarcity and how it will affect us. And there are also current estimates that predict that by 2040, up to 20 more countries than the ones are affected at this moment could be experiencing water shortages. So starting from this, what are exactly the repercussion on the businesses that you can identify, maybe predicting with
yeah, well, water scarcity has a huge impact on businesses, and we are just starting to realize actually the importance of the risk. And I would like to cite an article by McKinsey. That is an excellent article that I recommend everyone to read. It's titled What Your Company Can Do to Reduce Water Stress. And it opens with a sentence saying that water is as important to the world as economy, as oil or data. So at WaterAlliance, we love to say that water is the new gold. And McKinsey seems to agree with that. So it is really a human and business priority. And water risks, actually water scarcity can impact businesses on their direct operations and in their value chain as well. So as water stress grows, there will be business can experiencing risk in many forms, and I'm gonna explain a few of them. So for instance, there is the most obvious, which is the physical risk that can be really critical and costly when there is no water or the water is not fit for use, then you cannot continue your operations. There is also reputational risks. And that is a clear example, for instance, is the fashion and the textile industry, because now we are understanding more and more that what's going on in this industry. We understand that it's a major polluter of water at all the stages, from the agriculture runoff from cotton fields, and then the dyeing processes that also release toxic chemicals in the water, or from the user perspective, when we are washing our homes or at home, when we are washing our clothes at home, we might be releasing microplastics and we don't realize that we are actually a cause of pollution because of the choice of clothing that we make. So there are also stakeholder risks, because we know that more investment firms right now, they want their companies to report on water-related risk and how they are mitigating them. And obviously, we all are familiar with the regulatory risks, the new norms or laws coming into force, and that will enforce water usage and reduce pollution. So the businesses are compelled to make investments to comply to local or national regulations that are coming, and we can really foresee this coming and be proactive and take action already. So there is advanced equipment right now that could reduce the water consumption in the operations, reduce leakages. So all these things that we can do already. So yeah, what else can we do? So a part of working on the direct operations, we could also report actually the water consumption that a business has, and what are the measures that a business is taking to reduce that consumption. What else? A business can also influence their supply chain. And obviously, how? Well, a business can decide on a set of standards that all suppliers need to comply to. They can obviously go more into renewable energy. We mentioned how the link between energy and water is very strong. So working on reducing energy consumption and going into renewable will have a direct impact in water usage, actually. And what else? Well, business could also help their suppliers. They could send some teams, water expert teams, to help their suppliers identify or implement water efficient solutions. And the last thing that a business could do will be to advocate for water stewardship. They could, join international or national groups to advocate for water policies, or they can also support local water organizations and NGOs like ours to spread the word and make water a priority nowadays. And what can I give as an example? Very obviously, we were talking about plastic as well. So single-use plastic nowadays, there is a growing pressure on the producers to take responsibility of their plastic waste, because right now the responsibility is on consumers, on us. We should recycle, but this responsibility should actually be taken at the source. So businesses can act already, and there is, with all the comments that we have made so far, there's a lot of food for thought for all the businesses out there to be more water responsible.
Yes, actually, climate action is being taken in many countries. And these examples that you just mentioned, there are policies, regulation, and market instruments that are proving to be effective. But now let's dive into the role of the awareness raising campaigns. This is something you are an expert with, so we can jump in this topic. So what is the role of the awareness raising campaigns on water scarcity? And did you see any effect on the long term?
Right. So awareness raising campaigns and educational programs like the ones WaterAlliance is offering helps create a common understanding of the risks associated to not being proactive to the climate and the water crisis. So we have mentioned so far that these risks are very high, but not all of us or not all the stakeholders have the same level of awareness or are informed about their vulnerability. So they really need to understand that everyone will be very vulnerable to these risks if we don't take actions. And yes, there is many different levels of actions. We were mentioning regularity. So there will be laws in place. Businesses can also take action, but also we need to create enthusiasm and support from all of us, from the entire population. So thanks to our programs, so we really create that support and we stimulate mobilization and action to, we try to mobilize local resources or even mobilize our youth to be actors and change agents to influence their communities to adopt more sustainable lifestyles. So yeah, we want our campaigns and programs to be impact driven and look how could we generate behavioral change in a kind of grassroots movement, because we believe also on bottom-up approaches, not only top-down approaches. So everyone is responsible, as I've mentioned. Water is a shared resource, that means a shared responsibility, and everyone has their role to play. This awareness needs to be maintained on time. Change is not created overnight. And the message needs to be out there and giving also positive message that there is a way to turn this around and that, adopting more sustainable lifestyles, each action at a time is everybody can do, and every contribution counts.
So your organization is located in Dubai. So if we are going to bring this matter in the region, we know that the region water usage has long been ranked as one of the highest in the world per capita. Mm. How is UAE rethinking the use of the water resource?
Yeah, well, already a few years back, I think back in 2017, the Ministry of Energy and Infrastructure has put in place a UAE water security strategy for 2036. So that's the vision for already 2036 with a few objectives. And in terms of the use of water resources, the objective of the strategy is to reduce the total demand by 21%. All sectors included. So for that, they had a water demand management program that works with different stakeholders in a staged manner. And the objective also is to focus on sustainable practices to actually reduce the average consumption per capita by half. So this is already very important to understand that water has been always a critical resource here in the UAE, and the government is constantly acting on this issue. Another way that we have an impact on our water resources, we mentioned, is agriculture and food production. And there is as well a national food security strategy that has an indirect impact on our resources, our local resources. And this strategy actually is working with now with the agriculture sector to look at ways to reduce the groundwater withdrawals, and also work with crops that are more used to the salinity conditions of the water that we unfortunately have in the UAE, and be more efficient. So overall, there is action and there is plan to reduce the water consumption, and also there is an objective, for instance, to increase the reuse of water by more than 80%. So all of these measures will come slowly into place to reduce this huge water consumption that we are having.
Can you give us some examples of the programs you are running in the region for raising awareness, of course, on the water responsible consumption, because this is the most important topic you are on the agenda?
Sure. Sure. So WaterAlliance programs actually addresses two main audiences. We have adults and students. We offer actually team building activities for corporates and school programs for primary and secondary students. We actually we focus on youth, because we know that the younger generations, they have the ability of challenging the order of things, ask questions, and recreate their own space for their future. And this is what we want. We would like to encourage them to create their own sustainable future. So they have the capacity of turning problems into opportunities, and this is really a driving force, right? But regardless of that, all the activities that we offer for corporations, adults, or youth, we base them on a methodology of gamification. So what we want to do is that we want to walk away from traditional approaches of delivering facts and figures, and that we know that it can be overwhelming and can be a source of eco-anxiety. Nowadays, unfortunately, we hear more and more that eco-anxiety issue. And on the contrary, through gamified activities, we offer actually an intuitive, more sensory approach of acquiring that common understanding that I was mentioning before through team building experiences. So challenges are solved in a collaborative way. And this allows, for a safer and fun space to link the dots and bring abstract concept to a personal level, feel energized, and take the next step, that is to act, to be a part of the solution of the crisis, water crisis that we were mentioning before. So everybody can act at their level. So the topics of our workshops are quite diverse. We can touch, for instance, of the water footprint concept and a zero waste lifestyle, or on the water food energy nexus that we were mentioning at the very beginning of the talk, on water conflicts, water pollution, obviously, or the issue of water access and how unequal it is. And all this is made, again, to provide a platform actually to enable the adoption of more sustainable lifestyles. And we want to create interaction and action, actually. So that's basically the programs that we offer, gamified, interactive, where we empower the individuals to take a further step towards being a part of the solution. And we have a program actually for youth. Is the second edition that we had already run this year, is the Renew Our World Student Innovation Challenge, where we invite all the students across all Emirates to provide innovative, creative solutions to any local or global water issue of their choice. And we see that the youth have so many talent, and they are really providing incredible solutions using artificial intelligence, using water cycles in the homes, using the water from ACs, providing solutions for gardens, how to select the right plant that are, drought resistant. And so there are quite interesting solutions out there that we want to just make them viable, and they are scalable actually, and they can really provide really nice results. We would like the corporate sector to support us to enable this youth to bring up these solutions to, for everyone to be able to use them. So the winner of the senior category of the Renew Challenge will actually be sent to Sweden to compete in the Stockholm Junior Water Prize Award against more than 40 other countries. And she will be presenting her solution. Her solution actually is basically to promote the usage of refillable water bottles in schools. So all the water bottles we have a code, a barcode, and children will be able to scan the barcode each time they are refilling their bottle, and they will gain points, or they will receive information, or they will be challenging to play games, again, to reinforce the usage of the refillable water bottles at school. So we hope that it's going to create a movement for sustainable living, and create a movement also for sustainability in the schools through this challenge.
Mm-hmm. Before ending our discussion, what are probably the top 3 things we can do in our daily life to save water?
All right. So very important to understand that your water footprint, more than 97% of it comes from actually your consumption patterns, the choice of your food, the way you consume daily staples, or you chose your outfits, how many electronics you get. And the rest is part of the visible water, open the tap or close the tap when you take a shower. So it is important, obviously, to close the tap and take shorter showers. We encourage everyone to do so, but it's even more important to pay attention of the type of food that you choose to eat. We know that red meat has a higher water footprint. We can reduce maybe a little bit the consumption on that side. We know that the fast fashion industry has a huge impact on the global water resources. So the choice of more durable clothing, or how long you will keep them, don't be attracted by all these changing seasons and constant buying of new items of clothes that will make a huge impact. And then obviously your electronics as well. So for instance, I can tell you that our phone will have a water footprint of around 960 liters of water. So again, love your phone. You don't need maybe to get the next generation of phone that is coming every 6 months. Just maintain your electronics, your computer, take care of your clothing, be mindful of the diet that you're having, and yeah, close the tap.
These are very good advices, and I hope this episode will do its part in this campaign of raising awareness on water responsible consumption. Thank you so much for your presence at the Rethink podcast.
Thank you.